From the very day Taehyung stepped foot back into the house after years abroad, there was something unspoken in the air. His presence carried the same weight it always had. Tall, steady, with that quiet gaze that once made you feel both safe and restless at the same time. Only now it was different. There was a distance, a wound stitched poorly between you. He tried from the beginning. On the first evening, he lingered in the hallway when you passed, almost expecting you to stop to greet him, to let your eyes meet his with some trace of the old warmth. But you kept your pace brisk, muttering something about needing to help in the kitchen, disappearing before he could even open his mouth. The next morning, he found you in the living room, straightening cushions that didn't need straightening. He stood there waiting for you to turn, but when you noticed him, you instantly said you had to fetch something from your room. You vanished before his shadow could even touch yours. This pattern repeated every day. At breakfast, when he reached to pour water into your glass, you would politely excuse yourself, claiming you weren't hungry. In the afternoons, when he caught you in the garden, you would stand, brush invisible dirt off your clothes, and say Seojin was waiting. In the evening, when he hovered near the library doors, you would shut books quickly, rising to leave, saying you were tired and needed rest. It wasn't anger that fueled your escapes, it was fear. Fear of what Seojin might think if he caught even a trace of lingering affection between you and Taeyong. Fear of the chaos that would erupt in anyone saw the way your heart still betrayed you when his presence filled a room. But Taeyong, though patient, was unrevealing. He lingered near corridors at odd hours and if hoping fate might corner you both. He slowed his steps when you walked ahead, watching the distance widen. No matter how much he longed to shorten it, he stayed late at the dining table after everyone left, as if waiting for you to return, though you never did. Every small attempt he made was crushed by the walls you built around yourself. He bought a book once, leaving it on your desk, one he knew you used to love. But you returned it through Seojin, pretending it was misplaced. He paused once outside your door, a hand hovering ready to knock. But before he could, your shadow slipped past him into the opposite direction, claiming you had errands to run. And still he didn't stop. He looked for openings and cracks in your armor. When Seojin wasn't around, he positioned himself closer, but you never allowed more than a fleeting glance. When silence grew between others in the house, he leaned forward as if to speak only for you to cut it with a hurried excuse. The weight of rejection wasn't sharp but constant, a dull act that deepened every time you turned away. Each dismissal wasn't just an excuse, it was a reminder of the walls you had to uphold. To everyone else, it seemed like indifference, but Taeyong knew, or at least hoped, that behind your evasion lay the same fire that once burned for him. To him, your avoidance wasn't absence, it was proof you still cared enough to fear. But as days slipped closer to the wedding, the line between his hope and heartbreak blurred until he could no longer tell if your excuses were protection or a final goodbye. The clinking of cutlery filled the large dining hall, a sound that usually meant warmth, family, and comfort. Tonight, however, the atmosphere was thick and suffocating, heavy with things unsaid. You sat beside Seojen, your fiancé, his soft smile directed at you every few minutes as though to reassure himself you were really his. Across the table sat Taeyong, his sharp jawline tensed, his eyes glued to his plate but flicking up always towards you. Seojin leaned a little closer, lifting the serving spoon. Vienna, have some more japchae. You have barely eaten anything. You forced a polite smile, trying to keep your voice steady. Thank you, Seojin. I'll have a little. He carefully placed food onto your plate, his movements gentle, almost protective. You nodded, murmuring another quiet thank you, though your heart felt like it was somewhere else, trapped in another pair of eyes, staring at you from across the table. Taehyung's grip on his chopsticks tightened. He swallowed hard, forcing himself to look away. His father spoke about something trivial. His mother laughed softly. But for Taehyung, the world blurred. There was only you and your fake smiles and your lowered gaze. A moment later, he cleared his throat and picked up the dish of kimchi, stretching his arms across slightly. Wyan, do you want some? Taehyung said softly, almost hesitantly. You froze for a second, the familiar warmth of his voice almost undoing you. But then Seojin reached for the same dish. Without meeting Taehyung's eyes, you shifted slightly towards Seojin. Seojin, could you pass it? Of course. He smiled. He placed the kimchi onto your plate, brushing his fingers lightly against the rim as though to make the gesture more personal. You forced another smile at him, ignoring the weight of Taehyung's gaze burning into you. Taehyung's hand lingered mid-air for a moment before he slowly withdrew it with his shoulders slumping, his lips curved in the faintest, most bitter smile, and he murmured so quietly only he could hear, "Of course, why would you take anything from me now?" He whispered, but you heard it. Oh, you heard every syllable. Your chest clenched, your chopsticks stilled. For a moment, you wanted to look at him to tell him that if you took anything from him again, you would never be able to stop, that your heart still only beats for him. But instead, you forced a small laugh at something Seojin said, trying to mask the way your hands trembled. Wyan, are you alright? He asked, concerned, noticing your slightly dull expression. Yes, yes, just maybe a little tired, you said quickly, faking calm. Seojin smiled warmly. Then eat well, okay? Tomorrow is going to be a busy day. Across the table, Taehyung's chopsticks clinked harshly against his plate. His mother glanced at him. Taehyung, is everything okay? Yes, mother, everything is fine, he said, forcing a smile. His voice was low, but everything was not fine. His knuckles were white against the table, his heart shattering with every fake smile. You offered Seojen every little thank you. You whispered to him instead of to himself. He looked down again, showing food into his mouth without tasting it, just to mask the tremor of his lips. The rest of dinner dragged on with meaningless chatter, but beneath the table your nails dig into your palm, and every time your eyes flickered up, Taehyung's gaze was waiting, burning, fleeting, and breaking.